Coming to you from Clearly Balanced Days, a wellness company manufacturing therapeutic grade CBD wellness products, promoting the balance you desire in your life. I'm Alicia Grimaldi, Director of Customer Relations at Clearly Balanced Days. I'm responsible for making sure our customers have the best experience while providing education and support on one's CBD wellness journey. Today, in honor of Brain Injury Awareness Month, I have a special guest here, my dear friend, amazing artist, sticker maker, mural painter, and traumatic brain injury survivor, Liz Stella Ford. Welcome, Liz.
Hey, Alicia. Thanks for the intro.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Liz, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was an artist before my injury, and I'm an artist after my injury. I'm a wife and mom, an artist, and I'm engaged. I'm involved in this new project that I'm putting out there for Brain Injury Awareness Month. I love my community, and I want to be an advocate for all the people I know with brain injuries, and I'm going to be one face and one little voice in this big sea of people that are around you and you don't even know it.
So, Liz, your traumatic brain injury journey has brought you to a very special project, this project you're talking about, and you're sharing it with the world via your Facebook and your Instagram. Tell us how this project came about and what you're hoping your audience will take from it.
This project came about by a bad haircut, for lack of a dramatic start. I usually have a cute little faux hawk, and I was trimming my hair and I messed it up. And so I decided I was going to have to shave my head because it was just, I was taking a piece off each side. And so I shaved my head. And the next morning I looked at myself and I thought, wow, this could be a really cool blank canvas to like show symptoms, or I don't even know. It was kind of magical. I wanted to show part of my brain injury journey by taking, I don't know, taking the personality out of me and having this clean slate. So I set off to use things I had around the house and just my iPhone and me, and I chronicled some symptoms and some things that you might not have thought about. So
What are you hoping people will take from it?
I hope that it's kind of threefold. I hope that people who have a brain injury will not feel alone. I hope that people who support someone with a brain injury will glean some sort of understanding of what we go through and things that are hidden below the surface. And I hope the world connects to aspects of this in some way that they can take a little piece and just feel a part of the journey. It's an invisible injury, so it's very challenging to see the struggle in people. So I just hope that people get to see that part of it.
That's really beautiful. And I know from following your posts on the daily, because you've done this project, a post for every day of the month, that I've taken a lot from it on so many levels, but we can talk about that more as we progress. How is this project? You're an artist. You've created art for a long time. How is this project different than your other art projects?
Oh my gosh, this one is so different because I am in the piece. Usually I paint portraits of dogs or I do a mural, and it's not me out there. This is a journey in vulnerability, and as much of myself as I could put into it, I did. I am writing the harsh kind of take of things sometimes. My husband and I had a talk at the beginning because I took pictures and I've been writing as I go. So I had a softer version of these pictures and I was like, I'm gonna just do this to make it more palatable. And he said, no, this is real. Like, do the real thing. So I am real and vulnerable and out there, and it's my face And it's my words. And it's a little scary at times, but it was worth it. It was worth it. So that's the difference.
Yeah, you've got really strong imagery with these pictures
Mhm.
that tell so much. And then you put the words to it, and the way it's written is like no other that I've read before. And they marry each other so beautifully, and they both tell different pieces of the story. Can you talk a little bit about how that came together?
Yeah, actually, that's a lot of my issues with my brain injury. I have a challenge reading my cognitive stuff. So it's a lot of reading. So I set it up. It initially wasn't designed as sort of a poem, but it turned out to be. I set it up in small blocks of words so that people with brain injuries could really follow along and not have too much to concentrate on. And the visuals were for those who can't read that well to feel something and to connect with the image. So I did them as two standalone pieces, and then I married them together as a unit. So you can get something from either or both. So that was the whole motivation behind that.
It's so true. I look at the image and I feel a certain way, and then I proceed to the piece. And throughout the piece, I feel differently. And I think for me, and so many, because I've read your comments, that we all, if you have a brain injury, you can so connect, and that's going to be really hard for a lot of people. But if you've had any kind of time in your life that you've had experienced darkness or vulnerability, you can connect as well. So it's just really powerful. Do you have a favorite piece, Liz?
I think my favorite piece is called This, and it's probably the hardest piece for people to look at. None of my things are gory; they're just kind of telling. And in the case of this, I knew I wanted to do something that looked very fragile and very disconnected and cold at the same time, because there was a part in my injury where I reached this point where I could just sit on the couch and lean my head against the wall and be there for hours and not think and not do. I was kind of locked in, but in a way, it was kind of beautiful. So it's the hardest piece for my sister to look at. She just hasn't even been able to read it because she can't get past the image. But once you read it, then you see what's going on under the surface. So I have it if you'd like me to read it.
I was just going to ask you, would you mind sharing?
Let me just pull it up. Because technology is a challenge for me, I have to do this via phone. So this is the image. Um, so this this is hard to look at, right? This was hard to feel at times, but this is kind of beautiful too. I'm not quite sure what to call this. Here's what I can tell you. This was a combination of shutdown and overwhelm, of a fragility 1,000 times more delicate than a butterfly's wings. This was broken, like so broken it could crumble away. But this was a strong foundation being built at the same time. This made me feel invisible to even myself. But this let me show so much of myself in a broken completeness. This didn't know where it began and I ended, or vice versa. This was my shell. This was my hell. This was my ashes, but this was my phoenix. This was my prison, but this was my prayer filled seclusion. This is how I spent many a day against the wall in conserve energy mode, unable to feel the world around me. But this was a soul quiet, unlike anything I'd ever felt. This had no brain chatter, but this had no judgments, no criticism to use against me either. This was an eerie kind of stillness, but this was mixed with an awesome, fulfilled solitude. Me and this wrapped in the ugliest gray sweater for warmth and comfort together. The holes in the sleeves dripped out the pieces of my old life and everything I was, both the good and the not so good. my gray sweater anchoring me to my humanity, my family, my world, and my soul me. This and I, we sat together as we, each day like two souls waiting for a bus, afraid to engage in small talk. Is this a brain injury's version of rock bottom? But this can also be how the caterpillar feels wrapped up in waiting as angels miraculously build wings. Yes, this. Got all choked up there. I wasn't expecting that. I've
Me
read that a
too.
million times.
This
Oh,
was so powerful.
oh, it was a crazy feeling. And writing it, I had no word for what that felt like other than this. Like, what is this? And that was what it was.
Yeah. I love how that has come to you throughout all of your works. And the responses from people have been really powerful as well. What's the most impactful comment that you've received so far?
Gosh, that's really a hard one. I have a few that just hit me like so touching. Most of the ones that like sustain the gratitude of me doing this in myself have to do with feeling connected and not alone. Love that because I felt so alone in my journey. Um, One, I got a message from a mom who said she's going to soften with her child with brain injury because it let her see a different side. So that was like that
Wow.
directly impacted another life in that way. And the two of them and then their family and whatever comes from that. And then yeah, I think that was the one that like I held in my heart and thanked myself for doing this because I questioned myself for doing this a lot of the time. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And I feel like the work that you're doing is bringing about a lot of understanding for folks. And that's one of our goals in life, isn't it? Having understanding and compassion for others. So just so powerful. Thanks for sharing that. So I wanted to ask you about another post. You at Clearly Balanced Days in our professional and personal circles, we are mental health advocates. We support NAMI and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, spreading the message of mental health awareness and suicide prevention. We're always working towards ending that stigma around mental health. Your post on depression really got to me. It was raw, very raw, yet hopeful. Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. I began the whole thing with a trigger warning for other people, but mostly myself for writing it because it was so raw. And I feel like I would do my community a disservice by just glossing over depression. I feel like depression and brain injury sadly can go hand in hand because you're dealing with the loss of your old self. And that ambiguous loss definitely has an impact on your mental health. And I feel like I could not do this project without touching upon the mental health of my peers. And I got real and raw. I never had depression before. I think I threw the word depression around kind of like it gets tossed around sometimes like, oh, I'm depressed about this. But no, I wasn't until I was. So I never knew how overcoming, overtaking it can be until I was there. One little thing I learned along the way is sometimes chemically, one of the doctors I listened to said that your brain kind of throws in those kind of chemicals to shut things down and make you slow down. So at least that made me feel like it had a purpose. But the purpose nearly took me a couple times and I have to own up to that, and it was a challenge. And I turned depression in my post into suppression because I don't know if it's actually gone, but I have it in a place and it's off in the distance and I can keep it there right now. So as long as hope is along for the ride. So I talk about in my post about the hope holders, the people you reach out to, the 1-800 numbers, the medication, the doctors, the family, all the people that support you. You have to reach. You have to reach. I reached. People grabbed my hand. I'm here.
I'm so
That's
grateful.
me too. Oh, who knew I was going to be this emotional over tea?
Well, let's turn it around a little bit. So with a brain injury,
Mhm.
you have to be aware of your energy because it takes a lot of energy. And I can imagine doing a project like this takes an even greater amount of energy.
Yeah.
So how did you do it? Tell us about
How am I still doing it?
how are you still doing it?
Yeah,
You have a couple
yeah.
more days
I
left.
have a few more days left. I'm very grateful that we did this so long in the process because we have things to reflect back on, and that
Yes, me
I
too.
have a body of work that we can discuss. Um, Self-care is huge. Routine for a brain injury is absolutely a must. Um, my brain likes to rest in the predictable. As much as predictable as I can have set up for myself is helpful. From planning my clothes out, I pretty much have a uniform that I wear. I wear like black, white, and gray, and that's easy. Everything goes together. I don't have to think about it too much. There's things in brain injury like spoon theory. It's like how many spoons you start off with for the day. You give them up for the activities, and you only have a certain number. So I live very deliberately. My self-care involves like the same routine. I use the same things every day. I get up, I take my shower. I actually use your products because I use the salve, that 150 salve on my head and neck every day. It's part of my routine to get my muscles relaxed. I I have to have my nutrition, I have to have my exercise, and then a rest because all of that takes a lot of energy. You have to block in rest. It's an important thing. We live in a society that's so fast. Blocking in rest is huge, and it feels and looks like laziness sometimes, but it's self-care, and that's a hard one for my community too because it's draining to have a brain injury. So it's all about all the parts, putting them all together and keeping yourself on a routine and keeping yourself easing your days every single day, not pushing. There's a sweet spot where you push and then you push too far and then you have a snapback. And I get to that point and I got to rest. So I hope that answers that question.
I think that's a great answer. And I just through without saying it, I kept hearing finding that
Mhm.
balance, coming
Yeah.
back to balance.
Yeah.
And I think, people have talked about the word self-care forever, but I think in 2022, it is the word of the year.
Mhm.
So important, no matter what you got going on, we have to take care of ourselves in order to do the things we need to attend to. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Balance. Yeah. It's all about balance too. Yeah.
Liz, thank you. In sharing your traumatic brain injury journey, you connected us to our own vulnerabilities, leaving us inspired and with a message of hope. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. And people can find me on Facebook, um, on my Liz Stella Ford page, and on Darn Happy Accident on Instagram. And check me out, see what you think, see what you connect with.